Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is Monday. It is December 18th. I am Nick Whalen, joined as I am every Monday by my guy, Alex Barutha, head of our NBA content over at RotoWire. Alex, I was just telling you off air, this was a catastrophic weekend for me in my football interests across the Pick'em League, some of my bets, fantasy. Had two players finish with negative fantasy points this week. You never love to see that in the fantasy playoffs, but I'm glad to be talking basketball because things are going better in that realm. A lot of the season left, a lot to discuss from the weekend. How was your weekend? How's everything going with you?
Everything's going well. I was also fairly unlucky with my underdog and my prize picks entries this week. I had one that went 4 out of 5 on underdog, so that would have been nice. But no, I couldn't get it done either.
Yeah, man. I had a lot riding on the Chicago Bears winning outright against the Cleveland Browns yesterday. And without going into too much depth on a fantasy basketball podcast, that was a killer for the Bears to blow that lead. But yeah, having a lot of fun playing on underdog, playing on prize picks here in Wisconsin. We can find our ways to play whatever we need to, but love both of those apps. And obviously they both have a good working relationship with RotoWire. Already seeing some questions in the chat. If you're new here, guys, get those in there. We'll answer them over the second half of the pod. We do publish this as an audio version as well that you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. So we try to talk some substance, and then we'll do the live questions for the YouTube crowd later. But stack those up in there. We'll take a look. We'll hit as many of them as we can later in the pod. Alex, let's talk waiver wire. A lot of the leagues that you and I are in, Sunday night waivers. Big 10 p.m. deadlines in a lot of my leagues. The NFBKC, the Stake League over on ESPN. Anything notable for you this week as we get back to kind of a normal schedule post in-season tournament?
It was obviously a big weekend for people with, you had Draymond's out, obviously. That's been
heard about that.
Determined to be about 3 weeks. You have Wiggins coming off the bench now, although he had basically his best game of the year off the bench, and then the Garland and Mobley injury. So there was a lot of bidding on guys like LeVert, Podziemski. Kyle Lowry's been in the mix. I got Podziemski in my NFBKC league.
Nice.
Did about only, 9% of the available fab in that league. To get him, I dropped Grayson Allen. And then, I don't think in other leagues I managed to get anybody else, which wasn't that big of a deal. Like in Stake League, I was actually going to try to drop Wiggins. It didn't work, and then he ended up having a good game. And I already have Colin Sexton in that league, weirdly enough, even though I've been trying to drop him, but now I can't.
Yeah, right. There's so many of those situations that we'll end up talking about on the pod, either before we get to listener questions or, a lot of those will end up coming up organically. But yeah, Colin Sexton out of nowhere. Per minute wise, he's been pretty decent this season, but really through the first month and a half, it felt like there were more nights where he was playing 18 or 19 minutes than 30 or 31 minutes. And, with some of the injuries in Utah and just kind of a team that, like Detroit, changes up its rotation seemingly on a whim. We've now seen him play 30 plus in 3 straight starts, starting in place of Keontae George. 27, 4, and 3 are the averages for Colin Sexton over the last few games. Do you view this as kind of like a showcase opportunity? Do they try to trade Colin Sexton? I actually kind of like this as an initial landing spot. And it's been really strange. He's still young. He's not like he's 29 years old, right? And I feel like they don't seem to be necessarily treating him as a key part of their future.
No. The fact that Keontae George was getting, the starting nod over both him and Taylor Horton-Tucker was pretty damning for both Sexton and THT. But now with George out, he seems more day-to-day. Clarkson's going to be out for at least another week or so.
Yep.
So I think they're just going to continue featuring Sexton while he's playing well, right? There's no reason to, not start a guy who's putting up great efficiency numbers, playing this well. And then they're able to get, Chris Dunn out there a little bit too as well.
Yeah, Keontae George, he will not play tonight against Brooklyn. We know that for sure. And we should get a pretty decent indication, I would imagine, by Tuesday or Wednesday, because Utah then heads out on a 5-game road trip. And it's always possible that Keontae George could meet up with them in some city, but a lot of times in these situations, if the player's traveling, then there's a chance he could come back during that road trip. If he's not, it almost always means that, they'll just kind of wait until they're back home and let them rehab and reevaluate. But if you're in a weekly lineup league, I don't think you can really start Keontae George. You still, they have 4 games. So even without this one, if you're really optimistic, maybe you could get 3 games in, but they also play a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday. So pretty dicey. I would imagine he misses, at least one more game on top of this one. I had a busy week as normal. So I'm just kind of scrambling to keep my stake league team above water. We're doing all right. We're hanging around. Dame's starting to come around. Jaren Jackson's played better of late. I'll get Laurie Markkanen, back in full this week, so that helps. But still working the margins for the most part. You mentioned Podziemski. He went for $29 in the stake league fab. That's out of $100 budget. That was our guy Ken Kreitz coming over the top for Podziemski. I threw a bid in. I'll tell you, I was nowhere near $29.
I don't remember what I was at, maybe 13 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's like actually good. And the fact that, Steve Kerr generally doesn't trust rookies
Right.
and
He
he's
doesn't have a
put them
choice.
out there. Or yeah, rookies are young guys in general, right? Yeah, he doesn't have a choice. Clay's picked it up a little bit. Wiggins had a good game off the bench, but that was also against Portland. Like, we need to keep that in mind. But yeah, he's great from, like, whether you're in a points league or a category league. He's getting it done for you partially because he's a good defender. He's got at least 1 steal in the past 5 games. He can pass. He can do a little bit of it all. He's kind of like I don't know if this is like a great comp, but he's a little bit like a DiVincenzo who they had last year. He can do a little bit of everything. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
That could be part of it. No, yeah, for sure. And I'm starting to think it's somewhat sustainable, at least the minutes, right? Golden State at this point, obviously, who knows? They'll be without Draymond. I think Sham said this morning, at least 3 more weeks. We have no idea at this point on Draymond. That doesn't directly impact Podziemski all that much, but Gary Payton is really the only other regular who's not available right now. And his return, maybe that shaves a few minutes off for Podziemski, but I think this is what they're going to have to roll with right now, because unless Andrew Wiggins just completely wakes up and turns his season around, I think he's lost the trust of Steve Kerr, and rightfully so. And the Warriors obviously need a secondary scoring option beyond Stephen Curry. And I think to get a win in Portland last night with Curry having like his worst game in 5 years said a lot. And it's not like Podziemski carried them, right? 10 points, but still played 33 minutes. He's now started 3 games in a row. And if you go back, really since he started taking on this larger role, it's been 8 games now, 12 points, 6.5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals. Good percentages for a small guard who takes a lot of tough shots. Takes about 4 threes per game. So, the RotoWire Stake League that we talk about all the time, 16-team auction league, absolutely has to be rostered in a format like that.
100%. He's just too versatile, too good. The Warriors are too thin to not roster a guy like that. And I think he should be rostered in 12-team leagues. But I understand, you may not necessarily have someone to drop with confidence for him.
Yep. It was relatively quiet across the rest of the league. I added DeLon Wright, who might be back this week. Yeah. Just kind of a sneaky little ad there. I have no idea if he's going to play enough minutes for it to matter, but he's always at the top of the league in terms of steals per minute, steal percentage, things like that. So kind of a single category guy, someone that I just, he was rostered early in the season. He was putting up steals and then got hurt after like 2 weeks and was dropped, and rightfully so. But that's somebody that I want to stash and at least see what his role looks like. Washington's not going anywhere fast. I think they might be looking for any kind of steady presence in that backcourt. So if DeLon Wright can just play 20, 25-ish minutes on most nights, I think in a 16-team league, if they have a 4-game week, I'm going to throw him out there and hopefully he can get me 7 or 8 steals.
Yeah. I think in a league that deep, that's a fine move. Mm-hmm. Although, you might be burying the lead a little bit here with Washington, that Tyus Jones is now playing well. Past 2 games. Yeah, past 2 games. He has 35 total points, 22 assists, 14 rebounds, 8 steals, and 3 blocks. I don't know why Wes Unseld Jr. decided, like, hey, I'm finally going to play this guy 39 minutes in a game and feature him a little bit more, but it's happening.
It is. And if you held on to Tyus Jones through a very rocky first month and a half, maybe it started to pay off a little bit. The 2 games prior, 6 points, 4 assists, 9 points, 3 assists. So we'll see, tread cautiously here. But I think the bigger thing is that they played 2 competitive games in a row, right? They had a double-digit win. They did the unthinkable. They beat Indy over the weekend. He had a triple-double in that game. And then they played Phoenix close last night, 22-11-4 with 6 steals. So, hopefully you had Tyus Jones in your lineup there. I can't imagine too many people did, but I think he has to be a hold to at least see, if this can continue. I mean, we know he has this in him. He's always been a great per minute guy. I also added Taurean Prince in the stake league, just, trying to capitalize on what's been a decent hot streak. I mean, I'm basically streaming like 2 spots every week anyway. So I'm not really dropping anybody of real consequence. I forget. I think I dropped Kelly Olynyk to pick him up, and Olynyk had a nice run, with no Markkanen and Walker Kessler being in and out, John Collins being in and out. Mostly it was the assists for Olynyk, but that's not really a category that I'm targeting right now in that league. Other than that, Podziemski was definitely the prize. Dante Exum was added for $27 by our guy Aaron Quinn, who always does great in this league. I stayed out of the Exum bidding. I threw in a cursory bid. I knew I would be low, but how does 27 sound to you? I mean, that's a little over a quarter of your total budget.
Yeah, a little high. I think I did maybe like $8 or something like that. Again, just like
6.
Yeah. Cursory is exactly the right word for it. I've kind of mixed feelings about it because I think Exum has improved as a shooter, and it's really his shooting that's driving a lot of his value right now. He shot better in Europe last year than he did throughout his NBA career. But my concern mostly, from the perspective of, is this going to continue? First of all, I think it's okay to add him just based on the idea that Kyrie Irving is going to be out a while.
Yeah.
Because they're not really letting on how serious the injury is, but I won't be surprised if he's out like another month or something like that. But Josh Green has also been out during this time as well. Seth Curry missed a game in there. Derek Jones missed a game in there. So, I wonder if like when Josh Green comes back and if Exum starts shooting like 35% from 3 instead of 45% from 3, or his minutes going to be like in the mid 20s. And then he's probably going to be fine to roster until Irving comes back, but it just may not be what it has been.
Yeah, I just have a hard time, ponying up over a quarter of my budget for someone who we just don't know how long it's going to last, because I think once Kyrie's back, maybe he's still rosterable. He's probably not startable. And I just didn't want to go down that road and play that game. But, I certainly no problem adding him. At this point in the year, it's not like there are a ton of great options on the waiver wire in a 16-team league. I was able to get Tari Eason in one league. I think in most competitive formats, especially larger leagues, he's already rostered. But I mean, talk about somebody who's started to come on. I mean, he's not started a game yet this season, but the minutes have been on the rise. His last 4 is when this run really started. 27 minutes per game. Those were games against San Antonio, Memphis again, and then Milwaukee last night. He scored in double figures in all 4 of those. He had back-to-back 14 rebound games against the Spurs and the Grizzlies. The steals have been there as well. He's got 7 steals over the last 4. He's blocked a couple of shots. He's hitting threes. 16, 10, 1 assist, 1.8 steals, 1.8 threes for Tari Eason over the last week. The question, of course, as always, Alex, can this continue?
Well, for the second year in a row, he is leading the team in point differential on-off. Also, for the second year in a row, he is top 90 in per minute value in fantasy. I'm a complete believer in Tari Eason. He's like the number one, just like hustle guy, good defender, tries his ass off. Like it's impossible for, I can't even remember his name. Steven Silas was able to keep Tari Eason off the court. I don't know how. He managed. It's more skillful that he kept Tari Eason off the court than actually played him. I think this is fairly sustainable, partially because, look, Jabari Smith has been playing better lately. So, but his offense is kind of still up and down, right? Jalen Green is still up and down. I don't know, like Jayshawn Tate doesn't feel super stable in the rotation. You still have Aaron Holiday and Jeff Green getting minutes. Like, I think there are places where Tari Eason can just continue to get 25 to 32 minutes a game when other guys happen to not be playing well.
My final waiver claim, and somebody that I historically have grabbed, and I feel like every league I've ever played in at least once, I made the leap. I grabbed Kevin Love. $0 bid. He's on the roster in Stake League. 4-game week coming up for Miami. I don't know if I'm going to be comfortable starting him. Like he's played well of late. Obviously, that's coincided with Bam Adebayo not being out there. Still somebody, though, that even if he's only playing 15 to 17 minutes, like he still has those nights where he'll get you 8, 9, 10 rebounds. Like he still rebounds at a high rate. He's a good passer for a big man. He'll step out. Basically, he's in like the Al Horford zone now, where like 80% of his field goal attempts are threes. And you just hope that he's hot, and he's been running hot of late. His last 7 games, he's taken 7 threes per game. He's hitting them at almost 43%, 3 made threes a game. But let's talk a little bit about Miami big picture wise, because this is a team that has had, it feels like, at least one key guy out every single game so far this year. And ironically, they'll be without now Kyle Lowry tonight. He's dealing with an undisclosed personal matter, but they will get Tyler Herro back, and they will get Bam Adebayo back.
Yeah, this upcoming game today against Minnesota is going to be huge for, I think, understanding what Eric Spoelstra might want to do going forward with his rotation. Because like you mentioned, I mean, you said at least one. It's been more like at least 2 or 3 key rotation guys have been out for them all season. I get what you're saying about potentially not starting Kevin Love, because it's like, Caleb Martin's been playing well now. Do they, like, is Haywood Highsmith just out of the rotation? What do they do with Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez? But basically exactly what you're saying. So I think fantasy managers, if you're rostering anybody on the Heat, basically besides Tyler Herro or Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler, you need to really keep an eye on what happens in this game today, and then when they play next, which is Wednesday against Orlando.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to start Kevin Love. I don't think I'll regret it necessarily. It's kind of, to me, it's basically like Taurean Prince versus Kevin Love this week in a deeper league. It's like, yeah, good luck making a choice there. But rebounds, assists, threes, those are categories of need for me right now. So I'm never thrilled to pick up Kevin Love at this point in his career, but he kind of fit the bill for better or for worse. And as you know, the waiver wire is pretty dry in that league. I want to talk a little bit about Joel Embiid. On an all-time tear right now, happens to be coinciding with an all-time stretch of schedule for the 76ers. Their last 5 games have come against Washington, Atlanta, Washington, Detroit, Charlotte. I mean, that is as ideal as it gets. That's like facing the Detroit Lions defense every week right now. In that span, that's actually 6 games. Sorry, not 5. 40 points, 13 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2 blocks, 1.5 steals for Joel Embiid. And the majority of these games have been laughers, right? I mean, they've all been, basically huge blowout wins for the Philadelphia 76ers. And yet he's still getting the minutes. There's only been one of those, one of the Detroit games where he was under 30 minutes, still put up 35, 13, 2, 2, and 4. Embiid is the number 1 player in fantasy right now. It's kind of him, SGA, and Jokic in that ultra elite tier. I don't even have anything to say. I just think we need to acknowledge, what kind of a run Joel Embiid is on, just taking advantage of these terrible teams.
Yeah, 30 points in 11 straight games. You mentioned his passing has really improved. That's been big for his fantasy value as well. And the 76ers, I keep an eye on the simple rating stat from Basketball Reference, net rating weighed by strength of schedule. 76ers are now number 1 in the East and number 1 in the league in simple rating at basically 11, just a shade above Boston. But it's kind of those 2 right now in the top tier of the Eastern Conference, and honestly the top tier of the league, just based on that stat. And then it's everybody else. Yeah,
Jokic in 8 category per game value, pretty easily the number 1 player. SGA is next, and then there's a decent drop off to Luka and Jokic. Then you get into Halliburton, Anthony Davis. I mean, he's been a complete monster, man. On the year, Embiid's only missed 3 games. That might be the biggest stat for him. 34.2 points per game, 11.7 rebounds, 6 assists, just massive from the center position, and 3 combined blocks and steals, 53% from the field. Also very quietly shooting 89% at the line on 11.5 attempts per game, which is first in the league. I mean, he and Giannis are the only 2 players even in double figures right now in terms of free throw attempts.
Yeah, I'm looking at these 8 category per game rankings over the past 30 days. Victor Wembanyama at number 6.
Yeah.
Over the past month. He
is a monster.
He has been insane since they switched him over to center. That's obviously been huge for his fantasy value.
Yeah, 3.8 blocks per game for Wembanyama over the last month. That goes without saying, easily the best in the league. He's been a monster, man. I mean, even when the scoring, kind of fluctuates, he's hovering. He's still getting to like 18, 20 points every night, even if he's not shooting it that well. Like really the only hole in his fantasy profile is the field goal percentage, which for a guy his size is still low, but he takes a ton of jumpers. Obviously the free throw percentage could be better, but he's taken 4.5 a game. That's way more damaging if you're at 8 or 9 per game. So overall, I mean, he's absolutely lived up to the billing, both in real life and in fantasy. Let's talk about the Cavaliers quickly. Then we'll start hitting some listener questions. You guys can keep those coming in the chat. Always appreciate them. Cavs are going to be in trouble here. Not only will Evan Mobley undergo surgery on his left knee, he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. That's the initial estimation. But right after that news came, we found out Darius Garland has a broken jaw. No real firm timetable on him. They're just saying, quote, multiple weeks for Darius Garland.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be in trouble. From a fantasy perspective, I think this is mostly you pick up LeVert. Although even if you're in a 12-team league, there was a decent chance he was rostered already. I mean, people like to hold on to LeVert, and especially in deeper leagues. We'll see about the Craig Porter Jr. thing. That's kind of TBD. He only played 15 or something minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes in the first game without Garland. So that might be a deeper league option, but I don't know how much they'll rely on him. And then, with Mobley out, it's probably just going to end up being, I mean, the thing is Mobley's been out, right? So we're going to see some more from Okoro and Niang and Wade, but none of those guys are really like must-add players by any stretch of the imagination.
Now, and if you're looking at Saturday's game against the Hawks, Cavs won that one 127-119 with no Garland, no Mobley. I mean, Jared Allen, 25 and 14, 12 of 14 from the field. That's awesome. That's probably not sustainable. Obviously, he's rostered already. There's no real actionable advice there. But I think Wade and Okoro are probably the two guys other than LeVert who benefit most. And I don't really trust either of those guys. Dean Wade, I mean, both really played well on Saturday. I think Dean Wade, minutes-wise, is going to be a 20, 25, maybe even close to 30 on some nights type of player. He started now the last 5 games. In general, though, I mean, I wouldn't really touch him in anything lower than a 16-team league. And with the Okoro, it's just you're still waiting for it to come around. He's got the draft pedigree. They have some investment in him. But Saturday was far and away his best game of the season. It was his best game in weeks. I think he'd gone like 12 or something games in a row, scoring in single digits. Now, if he's going to play 28 to 32 minutes every night, maybe. But there's also a reason that he was left wide open more than any other player in the league last season from 3. NBA.com stats has that tracking, that tracking data that said like teams were literally going out of their way to leave him wide open no matter where he was.
Yeah, I'm not an Okoro believer. I don't even think he's. I didn't even consider adding him in our 16-team league. So you got to be in a really deep league for that to work out. It's pretty rare that we get a situation where 2 starters are going to be out in extended time, and there's almost nothing to do fantasy-wise.
Yeah, you said exactly what I was going to say. It is weird. I mean, for other teams, it's like when if Miami was up without, I don't know, Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo, like they were for a while. There's obviously like 3 or 4 guys we'd be talking about. But yeah, I mean, LeVert, I'm looking right now on Yahoo. He's 52% rostered. I would go grab him. I mean, I think you got at least 2 to 3 weeks without Darius Garland. I mean, broken jaw is a pretty unique injury. I don't know if you can even like wear a mask for that. Like there's obviously a decent amount of healing that needs to be done before he'll be cleared. So I think you're going to have a pretty nice runway here with Caris LeVert. And yeah, maybe throw a flyer in on Dean Wade in deeper leagues. And I think Niang is the guy to monitor if his minutes go up. We basically just have that one game on Saturday that we're looking at right now. And he played 15 minutes off the bench. He missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts. But I think if you're in a category league and you desperately need threes and he starts playing more, maybe that's a direction I would lean.
Yeah. And then from an on-court perspective or like a DFS gambling perspective, I looked up the numbers, the Cavs, Mobley and Garland off the court, Mitchell and Allen on the court. So kind of like their core for the next while. They're -7 per 100, but that's with a defensive rating of 123, which is 7th percentile. It's horrible. So they play the Rockets tonight. I'll be curious to see if the Rockets if torch them, if it's a high scoring sort of affair for Houston. Yeah,
second night of a back-to-back for Houston. They played in Milwaukee last night, so the dreaded road back-to-back. I think the other thing here is that we'll see a lot more of Donovan Mitchell on the ball as really the only option for them as a distributor, right? And LeVert can do that to some degree. That's never really been his calling card. I think he's more of a score first option. But first game without Garland, 13 assists for Donovan Mitchell. on Saturday against Atlanta. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable every night. Probably not. Atlanta's kind of an ideal matchup, I think, in some ways, for that type of game. But I think we'll see a nice uptick in assists for Donovan Mitchell. It's kind of similar to what we've seen from Devin Booker. When KD or Bradley Beal are out of the lineup, even before those guys showed up in Phoenix. Whenever there was an opportunity basically for Booker to move from shooting guard to point guard, we immediately saw an uptick in assists. And I mean, is it realistic that for the next few weeks, Donovan Mitchell could be like 30 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists type of guy?
Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
I think so too. With Mobley and Garland off the court, he's only averaging 26 points and 6 assists. But I feel like that might go up, and he might play more than those 36 minutes.
Yeah.
And some of it depends on who else is in the rotation and whatnot. But yeah, I think if you're rostering Mitchell, this is a huge benefit for you right now.
Yeah, it is a 4-game week for Cleveland. Some pretty nice matchups. They got Utah on Wednesday. They got the Pelicans on Thursday. They got Chicago on Saturday. However, they're only on a 2-game week the following week, and that is Christmas. So there is some unique scheduling. It's not a packed schedule necessarily for every team, but that's not great. That's not where I would use Dean Wade. I wouldn't even throw Karis LeVert out there in that situation. I mean, I'd have to take a deeper look at next week's schedule, but you're probably leaving Mitchell in there. But yeah, unfortunately, they go 4-2-4, and then kind of a unique schedule to begin January as well, where it's not really jam packed. But we'll see how much longer Darius Garland remains out of the lineup. Other injury news: Bradley Beal, our return to having the big three in action was very short lived. He played in like 2 1/8 games with the Suns, and then early in their loss to the New York Knicks on Friday. Went out with a right ankle injury, and he is once again now on the shelf for multiple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we've seen so much of this already that it's not really a secret, like who is going to get more time and more usage. We're going to see more Eric Gordon. We're going to see some more Grayson Allen. And, we'll probably see a little bit more like Josh Okogie and stuff like that, but that's kind of a deeper league thing.
Well, I know you mentioned, when we were talking waivers earlier, that you tried to drop Grayson Allen.
Yeah.
Still comfortable doing that in light of the Beal news?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, with only one of those guys out, with only one of the big three out, I'm fine with dropping Allen. I mean, he's good, but I dropped him for Podziemski, and I actually think Podziemski's going to have more long-term value, and has a better. I think his fantasy skill set overall is better, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Suns are just so Durant Booker centric without Bradley Beal. And if you watch the games, I mean, that's exactly how it goes, right? Like if you're just box score hunting, you might, it's a little bit harder to tell, but if it's like everything runs through those guys, everything, right? And it's actually pretty balanced outside of those two. I think Nurkic to me is pretty clearly the number 3 guy. And, he kind of picks his spots, had a huge game rebounding against Washington last night, 17 boards, just 6 points, but you'll take the boards there. Other than that, you're just kind of, you kind of grasping at straws night to night. It's like, is this going to be the night where Eric Gordon hits 5 threes? Or maybe it is Grayson Allen some nights. Jordan Goodwin, I think it's going to be in the mix for them. Obviously, they got, Chimezie Metu, Drew Eubanks, Nas Little, has been a part of the starting lineup as well. So I think there's, in order, it's like Durant, Booker, Nurkic. I think I would rank Gordon ahead of Grayson Allen. And, Grayson Allen to me is just he's closer to that tier of just, you're kind of rolling the dice every single night as far as like, he might play 33, 35 minutes, but he also might only take 7 shots when he's out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's out there more for, I want to say more for defense, right? But that's kind of what he's doing out there for the most part. He's not like a gunner.
Yeah. I think he's out there to get some cardio, play his role for this team. But I don't think we are set up for, much of a fantasy run here, even without Bradley Beal. Underdog Fantasy. One of our favorite partners here at RotoWire. It's the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. You hear Alex and I talk about it all the time. I've been playing an unhealthy amount in a good way on Underdog this NBA season. You can mix and match NBA and NFL when those are going on concurrently. Obviously hockey as well. They have it all over at Underdog. It's a lot of fun. If you have not tried Underdog yet, new users get a first-time deposit bonus up to $100, and you'll get a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire. Just got to use the promo code RWNBA. That's RWNBA. Extremely good deal. That gets you access to everything on RotoWire. for the next 6 months. I mean, that'll bring you even into the nation stages of fantasy football season for 2024 to get you all of our baseball content, everything on the site. Again, that promo code is RWNBA. Go to underdogfantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Do it right now. Use that promo code RWNBA. That'll get you a free RotoWire subscription and that deposit bonus up to $100. Let's get to some live listener questions. We got a trade question right off the bat from Leo. He says, I got offered Julius Randle, Giannis, and Zach LaVine for his Kyrie, Anthony Edwards, and Scotty Barnes. Which side would you rather have?
I'm muted. That is a tough question.
You're just taking your time to think on it.
No, I may anyway. I may talk myself through this one. Yeah, I mean, because you have Kyrie and LaVine out for a while, right? I think it wouldn't be surprised if they come back around the same time. Kyrie is better than LaVine in fantasy, but Giannis is better than Edwards. Randle and Scotty are probably similar at this point. Randle's kind of been on a heater since starting slow.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. Do you have a strong opinion on this one? I feel like I'm kind of 50-50 on this.
I think I would lean toward the Randle, Giannis, LaVine side. Part of it is format dependent, although, I don't. Giannis's free throw shooting has been so like up and down, right? Like he's had these nights where he'll go like 12 of 14, and then it'll be like 5 of 12 the next night. So I mean, on balance, I guess it's about the same. I guess to me, it's just the Kyrie situation. Like I have no idea how much time Kyrie is going to miss. I would be. And I guess you could say the same thing about LaVine, although I'm of the belief that he's just chilling until he gets traded. And I actually don't think he's that injured. So maybe that cancels out for some people. But Kyrie is just an injury headache in general. And he's already hurt right now. And he's without a timetable. So maybe he's back in a week and this will sound dumb. But I guess I just don't want to sign up for that guessing game with Kyrie.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Randle, Giannis, LaVine side is I think it's fine, but honestly this trade to me is not, I don't think this is like league winning or league losing. This feels like closer to a wash for me.
Yeah, and like you said, Randle's played so much better lately where I think I'd still rather have Scotty Barnes going forward, especially because that Toronto roster could end up looking different. I don't think they trade him, and I think he could take on like an even bigger role later in the season. So I think if you're comparing like Randle versus Barnes straight up, I'd probably rather have Scotty Barnes, but it's been a lot closer than you might think over the last few weeks since that slow start. All right, Paul says he is punting points. Who should I trade Jaren Jackson Jr. for? The other team has Maxey, Porzingis, Poeltl, Tyus Jones, Drew Holiday, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Miles Turner. The offer was Turner and Holiday for his Jaren Jackson.
I think that Turner and Holiday for Jackson is like roughly fair. I'm just not sure I would do that. I would probably keep Jaren Jackson if I was you. If that was the offer. I don't really know. You're not going to be able to, I don't think, get Maxey. I mean, maybe you could do it straight up for Porzingis, but I don't know exactly what the point of that would be.
Yeah.
I
would rather have Jaren Jackson than Porzingis.
You're not going to get Durant for him. And if you're punting points, then you got to think about guys who are rebounds, assists, defense, and I don't know.
I guess, blocks wise, like Turner versus Jaren Jackson, those guys are comparable. So I think that's somewhat of a wash. Turner's he's a better rebounder, but he's not a dominant rebounder. He's not a great rebounder by center standards. You're not bringing in somebody who's going to get you like 10 to 12 boards every single game. So I would rather hold Jaren Jackson. I mean, obviously, if you could flip him for Maxey or flip him for Durant, then yeah. I guess Kyrie would maybe be the wild card here, right? I mean, would you do Jaren Jackson for Kyrie? Would you try to attach something there? I know I just said I wouldn't want to bring in Kyrie, so I personally would not. I also want to see what Jaren Jackson looks like with the Grizzlies as a competent team. He's had these huge scoring games the last couple of weeks when like Bane was out and they're going up against bad teams and he could just launch, which is all well and good. And I understand, Smart and Morant coming back, that takes some usage away from Jaren Jackson, but I think we'll see a more efficient version of him. I think we'll see him kind of playing the role that he's meant to play. And he's just not a premier scorer. He's not somebody who's going to carry you night to night. in that way. And Morant's eligible to come back tomorrow night, right? So I'd at least want to see that through for a few games before I punt on him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, let's see. We're trying to pick a duo here. It's a question from Mal, and he said he's in a 9-cat, 10-team league, so a little shallow. Naz Reid and Mike Conley, or Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, or Tyus Jones and Daniel Gafford. So I think the implication is he's putting two of these players or one of these pairs, in his lineup this week.
Maybe this is recency bias, but I think I want the Tyus Jones Gafford pairing. I think that pairing has the highest ceiling. I mean, maybe it's Green and Jabari that have the highest scoring ceiling, but we've seen Tyus Jones have better passing lately. Gafford had a monster game the other night against Phoenix. Yeah.
I will say that of those three, Washington is the only team that's on a 3-game week. So I don't think I would go that route just because I think this is relatively close. It's a good question. And I think that would break the tie for me, right? Like, or do you feel that strongly about it?
No. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about what their game schedule was. Yeah, it's got to be if Houston and Minnesota are on 4-game weeks, it's got to be one of those pairs.
Yeah, if we're talking streaming for the week, I just go with one of the 4-gamers. I'm not a big Jalen Green guy. I was, coming out of the draft. I've just been, disappointed. He's been up and down. Like, he had a pretty nice run in early December, even stemming back into late November, where he had like 8 games in a row where he was over 20 points per game, 47% from the field, still not shooting it well from 3. And that's kind of been the Achilles heel for him. I love what I've seen out of Jabari Smith. I don't love how they're using him necessarily. Like, he still kind of feels like an afterthought whenever I watch Houston. Like, he has to work so hard just to get everything because like they don't give him the ball. And Naz Reid and Conley, to me, that might be the safest option. Is Reid and Conley. Like, if you're just looking for floor. But on a 4-game week, if you're shooting for upside, maybe go Green and Jabari. But make sure you check the schedule there. All right, we got a Miami Heat question. Another Triple J, Jaime Jaquez Jr. Are Jaime and Duncan Robinson still holds with Tyler Herro coming back?
I will see. I hate to be like, well, we'll see, but we have to know what Eric Spoelstra does. If you're thinking about if you're my guess is you're in like a daily transactions league and you're like, do I just drop these guys now and try to pick someone up? I might hold and just see what happens.
I mean, early in the season when Herro was healthy, Robinson was still playing enough minutes where I think he's viable. He was taking almost 7 threes a game. He was hitting 2.5 per game, and he's been shooting it better since then. So I think if you're in a category league and you need threes, then I would not drop Duncan Robinson. I mean, chances are, if it's a shallower league, then maybe you could make that up somewhere else with somebody who's a little bit more secure. But I'd be a little bit scared to drop both of those guys, right? And I feel like I'm playing mostly in like 14 and 16 team leagues, unfortunately, this year. So, these decisions become, I guess in some ways a little bit easier. Like in a 14 or 16, I'm not dropping either of them. Wouldn't think about it because somebody will grab them immediately. And I think Jaquez has played so well that he has to be in the rotation, right? Like I think it might be Josh Richardson. It's going to be Haywood Highsmith. Obviously Orlando Robinson. He'll be out of there with Adebayo coming back. I think Miami's going to try to play as many of these guys as they can. Maybe it's more so a matter of like touches and usage as opposed to minutes. But I mean, Jaquez has been so good. I wouldn't want to drop him.
I'm completely with you on that. Yeah.
All right. Jeremy Grant for Jacob. I assume this is Grant for Jakob Poeltl in a 9-category league. Thank you, Don, for the question. Is that a fair 1-for-1 trade?
I would rather have the Jeremy Grant side, I think. Maybe you have to be a little worried about the Blazers sitting him down the stretch, but Poeltl hasn't exactly been that consistent this season.
It just hit me that this could also be. Oh wait, no, never mind. Sorry, I was thinking it could be Sohan, but no, we got Grant in there. So it is Poeltl versus Grant. I mean, Grant obviously missed the time with a concussion, missed 4 games, but has been himself since he came back. I mean, he's 27 and 30 points, played big minutes against both Dallas and Golden State. Those were close games, especially by Portland standards. I do think it's a relatively fair deal. I mean, it depends what you need. Like if you want more dependable rebounding and shot blocking, then yeah, Jakob is probably your guy. He's also a lot more efficient from the field. His field goal percentage is also, I mean, it's way up compared to last year. So you do wonder, it's like, could he continue to shoot 73%? But even if he goes down to 65, that's huge. But yeah, so for me, to answer the question, I think it is a fair deal. It just depends what your needs are.
Yep, it's fair in theory. All
right, good question from Ja. Must be Ja Morant, getting some fantasy questions in before he returns tomorrow. Who is the pickup when they return? I was going to say Willie Cauley-Stein. Wendell Carter Jr. or Markelle Fultz in a 14-team points league. So you got to choose one of those two.
This is a really tough question. I think I would rather have Fultz. I am a little worried about like the knee being a continuous issue.
Yes.
But Wendell Carter Jr. wasn't playing that well either before he got hurt, and I don't think he has that much upside. I think the idea of like Wendell Carter Jr. as like a top 60 guy is just done. And Batatse and Wagner have been playing well enough to where it's like, Carter's so injury prone. Are they just going to start playing him 25 minutes a game instead of 32 minutes a game or something like that? So I don't think either of these guys are necessarily have to be a priority pickup, but I think I would rather lean Fultz, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, very small sample for Wendell Carter before he got hurt. He only played in 5 games, 29 minutes, 9.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, had 2 total blocks and 3 total steals. Did not shoot it well at all. Again, very small sample, so hard to draw from that. But I'm with you. I think upside-wise in a 14-team league, it's got to be Fultz. But again, I do think this knee issue, I mean, the way they've been handling, he's been game to game now for 3 weeks?
It feels like it, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Admiral Nita, always a strong presence in the stream. He asked, what would you trade Mobley for, considering he might not be back until the All-Star break? So, yeah, I mean, it's a real question, especially if you're doing well in a league and you don't want to just, sit Mobley in an IR spot for, what could be 2+ months. Obviously, you're selling low here, but what would be realistic if you want to go that path?
I think he's quietly ranked 36th this season in 8 cat leagues. So you're not going to be able to trade for someone who's around that rank. I don't know if anybody, I mean, the thing is you have to probably offer him to somebody who is doing really well. So you're probably only going to talk to like your top 3 league managers, and it might be like a their problem for your problem kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. If you just want someone like straight up who is playing, I mean, maybe someone in the 50s, like if they had Nurkic or something, or Jaylen Brown, maybe that's a little too rich. I don't know if someone else would do that. I think if you wanted to grab like Kyle Kuzma or Kobe White from somebody, I think that might be the range where they would have to think about it. Even if they lost, that production out of them for a bit and they got Mobley in the end, that's maybe more so what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, it's really tough because I think there's not many managers, especially since the news is so fresh. And it's different if you're like 4 weeks into that timetable. But knowing for sure that it's at least 6 weeks and probably more makes that difficult. I think you could try like Jalen Johnson. He's also injured right now. Maybe somebody that maybe looking to offload him. Miles Bridges has not played well lately. You could maybe try to steal him away. Otherwise, are we talking like Keldon Johnson, Daniel Gafford, Spencer Dinwiddie, guys like that? I always say, shoot high, right? I mean, don't like try to get Kevin Durant or something like that. But as long as you're putting out something that's relatively fair, make somebody say no or send over, hey, take a look at your top 3 or 4 league managers and say, all right, these are the players I'm interested in. Can we get a deal done here? What about Zach LaVine? That you talk about my problem for your problem.
Yeah, Zach LaVine, definitely interesting. Gafford was the name I was looking at. I think someone who has Gafford might genuinely think about that. Or you could try to, 2 for 1. You send them Mobley and you get 2 guys back who are sort of not end of the bench guys, but like end of the starting lineup guys. Mm-hmm. Or you package someone along with Mobley and try to get someone back. You send them 2 and you get 1 back. Maybe that kind of a thing. Maybe that puts you in a tough spot bench depth wise, but you might be able to stream as well, depending on how deep your league is. So you got a lot of options. Just, like Nick said, shoot high, but don't expect to get anybody like more than top 75, I would say, for him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What does punting points mean? Good question. Very fair question. So if you're in a category league, you're obviously your normal categories are points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, threes, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and some leagues might include turnovers as well. Punting points, punting anything just means that you are basically trying to, or attempting to build your roster for that to be a weakness, and you are sacrificing that in order to build up strengths in other categories. So if you're punting points, you want to make sure that maybe you're targeting a bunch of big men and you want to do well in blocks and field goal percentage, but you're targeting guys who don't score all that much. So it's just a way to roster build in category leagues. Some people punt more than one category. That becomes difficult. That's a tougher needle to thread. But I always say I usually don't. I don't try to do punt builds, and then early on in the season you realize, I'm gonna have to kind of semi punt this category on the fly.
Yeah, punting is like for head-to-head leagues. Like Nick is saying, if you're in a 9-category league, all you have to do is win 5 categories to win the matchup. So there are 4 categories that don't matter, and you sort of minimum some other categories, maximum some others. But a lot of times, also like Nick mentioned, you try to punt one thing, and then you automatically start punting something else. Like if you punt assists, for example, well, what are the type of players that don't get assists? Well, forwards and big men, right? So then all of a sudden you're punting threes because you have a bunch of centers on your roster because they don't get assists, and it all kind of goes together. But that's for head-to-head category leagues.
Yeah, I would say most often you probably see free throw percentage punted. There are a couple others in that category, but I think it's something you see, like if you take Giannis in the first round, there are ways to minimize the damage there. You can add, guys who shoot in the high 80s and make it work. But with Giannis taking 12 free throws a game and, hitting them at like 60%, it's just going to be really hard to like do better than average in that category. So, it more than anything, it informs, the way that you kind of fill out the rest of the early portion of your draft. Like if you get Giannis, then you're kind of saying, all right, I don't really care if I draft somebody else who's a poor free throw shooter because I'll make up for it in theory in other categories. All right. Ant asks, Coulibaly, is he a long-term ad in a 12-team category league? We are back on Bilal Coulibaly as my ring light almost falls over. It's been a season of runs for Coulibaly, Alex. Had that good run in mid-November when everybody went and picked him up, and then he was down for a couple weeks. I had a nice 6-game rally early in this month, and then kind of came back down to earth last night against Phoenix. 12-team category league, I don't know. I have not really had a whole lot of interest in Coulibaly, but the field goal percentage has been better than I expected. Especially because he's taken a decent amount of threes. Not a good free throw shooter. He's also not taking a ton. Longer term, I think is the question. Like, would I be holding him right now? No. I guess at some point, do the Wizards hand him 35 plus minutes a night and say, hey, we want to see what we have in you? Maybe. What do you think?
I think he's pretty holdable if your team is doing well. I think if you're near the bottom of the standings and you just need production, I wouldn't bother. But yeah, if you're doing well, or maybe you're in the middle of the pack, I think you can add him because I would consider him streamable on 4-game weeks. So he's fine to have at the end of your bench because you could theoretically use him in those situations and you wouldn't be sort of screwing yourself. But it's not for people who are struggling in their league.
All right, my roster is Rockets happy right now. 12-team category league. What moves would you make? He has Brunson, Jalen Green, Fox, LeBron, Jabari Smith, LeVert, Şengün, Hartenstein, Jalen Williams, Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, Brook Lopez, Giannis, Jetty Osman, and Kyle Lowry. I mean, these questions are tough to answer. We don't know who's doing well in your league, who you could target. I wouldn't worry too much, I guess, about being Rockets heavy. I think for the most part, you have the right Rockets, right? I mean, having Tari Eason right now is big. I think that's if nothing else, that's a potential trade chip. Especially if you're doing well in your league, that's somebody maybe you could try to, kind of sell high and bring back somebody who might be a little bit more reliable. But, I like Jabari Smith. Şengün's been great. Jalen Green's been Jalen Green. Maybe that's the guy you move off of. But is there anything that really jumps out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm not really attached to. I mean, you have a lot of Rockets, but honestly, I don't I don't like that many of them. I mean, I'm not like I don't think Jalen Green or Jabari Smith or Dylan Brooks are guys you absolutely have to roster in 12-team category leagues. And even Eason is kind of borderline, although I think he's probably worth keeping. So if I were you, I would just start tossing out trade offers that involve Jalen Green, Smith, and Dylan Brooks, because I don't think you necessarily need those guys. And if you can get anybody back that is like a top 80 player, I think I would just do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to sum it up. All right, we'll go rapid fire. We got about 10 more minutes to hit the rest of these. Good question on Zion from RP Lester. He says, hello, RP. I'm trying to trade Zion Williamson. Are these fair options for both me and the other teams? And the 4 players that he throws out, I assume these would all be 1-for-1 deals. D'Angelo Russell, Jamal Murray, Terry Rozier, Tyler Herro.
I would not consider, like if I was an opposing manager and I had any of these guys, I would not give you Tyler Herro for Zion. I would not give you Jamal Murray for Zion. I don't think I would even give you Terry Rozier for Zion, although I would at least think about that. Yeah. D'Lo to me seems the most fair, but that's almost like shooting too low, I think.
Yeah.
I
think the Herro one is fair, just given the unknown coming back from injury. I think that one to me, I wouldn't do Murray. I wouldn't do Rozier right now. Russell, I would much rather have the Zion side of the Russell deal. I think his numbers are going to regress. Like, he's been shooting above his level. But I don't know. The Herro one is fair, right? I mean, I guess the question is, like, have we seen the best version of Zion? Are the numbers as they are right now? Is that just kind of where he's going to sit? Like, he's been pretty good. He ranks inside the top 50 in the last month. So I think you're shooting in the right zone overall. And again, it depends what you need.
Yeah. Maybe Rozier is the one, partially because I think there's a good chance the manager who has Rozier is sort of worried, like, hey, when LaMelo comes back, Rozier is not going to play this well again. Mm-hmm. But I still think Rozier is probably going to be a top 60 guy. So I think to me, I perceive that as the most fair. But that's kind of where I stand on all of them. I'm probably higher on Herro than Nick is. Derek
asks, Anthony Edwards or Bam Adebayo, better rest of season hold in a punt assist team?
I would say probably Anthony Edwards. I view these guys fairly equally. Right now, Edwards is ranked 31st, although he had played kind of poorly and tanked his value. I mean, Adebayo ranks 27th. I mean, they're basically the same. Mm-hmm. Punt assists. I mean, if you're punting assists, I guess in theory, Bam is more valuable because he averages fewer assists, and Herro's coming back, so I think his assists will decrease even more. But his scoring might as well. For this specific build, maybe Adebayo.
Icy Lee asks, my team lacks big men. Is it fair to trade OG Anunoby for DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, 2 guys who are kind of underperforming. I have Ayton in my 16-team stake league. It's weird because his scoring is down, but his rebounding is doing really well and his steals are up, so he ends up ranking like 50th. Is it fair? I think it's fair. Yeah, I would just be worried about Ayton. I'm less worried about OG long term.
I think like a month ago, I would have said the other thing. Yeah, I would have been like, I don't know if I'd give up Ayton, but it's a tough time because OG's been way better over the last few weeks, and Ayton has kind of seen his stock tumble. But on balance, like if you take the whole year into account, they've been like almost dead even. So yeah, I would say it's fair. And if you're big man needy, then you're kind of accepting that you'll probably take a slight loss on return here just because you need that specific position. My goodness. Shockingly fair and really crushing question. Andrew Wiggins or Dante Exum, Alex?
Look, I tried to drop Wiggins for Exum. Let's put it that way. On Sunday, before Wiggins had his big game, I put in the fab bid to drop Wiggins for Exum. So if I'm backing up what I'm saying, I think I would rather have Exum, partially because I don't know if Wiggins is really going to bounce back that much. And the thing is, here's the important thing that I feel like we need to mention with Wiggins. With the Warriors, basically since he's been on Golden State, he's been ranked 87th, 112th, and then 82nd again last year. His upside is not that high. Like, should you roster him on a 12 team if he does return back to those numbers? Yes, but it's not like killing you if you miss out on him. So I would just take whoever's producing, and that is Dante Exum.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. Zach says, I'm thinking of going for Garland. Who do you think is an acceptable offer? Drew or Michael Porter Jr. plus one more guy straight up for Garland. Obviously, Garland is injured. We're not sure how much longer he's going to be out, but looking at multiple weeks with that broken jaw. So, you're interesting question here, right? So you're trying to, trade for a player who's injured. So you should be able to get a discount there. So basically, again, what he's asking is, could he offer Drew Holiday or Michael Porter Jr. and then one more, decent, maybe borderline starter for Garland?
Yeah. I would definitely try to get away with trading either just Drew or MPJ straight up for Garland first. Mm-hmm. Both those guys rank like in the 75 to 85 zone. Garland is more like a 30th or 40th guy. I think that's yeah. I mean, offer one of those guys and then see what the guy comes back with as a counter. I assume he'll counter it and want one more guy from you, like you're saying. I think you're spot on there. But then I would probably not give up somebody who is more than like a fringe starter for you in addition. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's fair.
All right. Got offered Bam and Jaylen Brown for my Anthony Edwards and Lauri Markkanen. Which side would be better for a punt assists and soft threes team in a 12-team 9-cat league? He says he only has Claxton and Mark Williams at center. So, would be adding Adebayo, who, of course, is center eligible.
Yeah, I mean, with only Claxton and Mark Williams as your centers, I mean, that's good when they're healthy. If you're in a 2-center league, I think I would do this. Yeah. But honestly, I'm a little worried about Markkanen's rest of season. Just from both a health perspective and the fact that the Jazz are so bad, and it seems like they're exploring trading him. And if he gets traded, he's no longer going to be the number 1 option. He's probably going to end up being like a number 4, number 3 option on some team. So that would worry me. Obviously, Ant is better than Jaylen Brown, but yeah, if you're worried about center, I'm okay with that trade.
Good question from Eric. He says, any good steals, assist streams you could think of for this week? He's looking for steals and assists in a 14-team league. Says his matchup is going to depend mainly on those 2 stats. Much thanks. Thanks for the question, Eric. TJ McConnell, I guess, is who comes to mind for me first.
Oh,
I don't know how viable that's going to be. I mean, the minutes have been up a little bit lately for McConnell. It was really not, I wouldn't say a regular in the rotation early on, and he's played double-digit minutes now in 5 straight. In that span, I believe Halliburton missed at least 1 game during that run, so take this with a grain of salt, but he's at 6 assists and almost 2 steals. So in a 14-team league, somebody to consider. Anybody else really come to mind for you, Alex? I mean, there's always, if you're really targeting steals, like there's always Matisse Thybulle, but he's not going to give you any assists.
Yeah, I mean, my answer to this is usually like Caruso, but he just the man cannot stay healthy. Steal streamers are tough to come by. Yeah, I mean McConnell's also a good option, like you mentioned. It's definitely inconsistent at times, but that's about as close to like a sure thing as you can get in terms of like, if he can get 15 to 20 minutes. Are they on a 4-game week? They are on a 4-game week.
Pacers are,
so, yeah. So I think it's probably McConnell and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, it's like, I don't know, Jose Alvarado has been playing a decent amount of minutes, but I like McConnell a lot more than him. In a 14-team league, yeah, there's not a whole lot out there. I mean, maybe like Taylor Horton Tucker. Again, you're not going to be super thrilled with that. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not a ton of names that come to mind right away. Let's see. What do you think of Tim Hardaway Jr.'s value with all the injuries in Dallas? Is he a must roster right now?
He probably, I mean, he's had stretches this season where he's looked really good. I think he probably is in I assume you're talking about a 12-team league. I wouldn't say he's a must roster in 12-team leagues, He's going to end up jacking a ton of threes. If you need threes, go ahead and roster him. If you don't need threes or points, I don't think you have to. Let's put it that way. He's a must roster for people who need threes and points. Other than that, no.
J. Mark asked, hey, is McCall Bridges for Jaren Jackson Jr.? Is that a good trade? I need a center. I have McCall, but I'm unsure.
To me, this feels fair.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if you need a center, I think you go for this. Jackson's value has quietly been, well, maybe not so quietly because he had 2 40-point games back to back. But yeah, I think he'll continue to play better. I think this trade is fair overall.
Yeah, I'd rather have McCall Bridges, but if you need a center, I think this is reasonable. And yeah, Jared Jackson's played better. Over the last month, they're basically dead even in terms of total value. I have Nurkic and Valanciunas on my Yahoo points team. I'm thinking of selling high. Know of a few targets I could get, or even a 2-for-1. So, willing to package 2 big men. I assume you'd probably prefer to bring a big man back in that scenario. But basically, selling high on Nurkic and Valanciunas. Again, tough to say league to league. Kobe White's obviously a name that we always throw out there, although you're kind of be buying high on him. If you're looking for a wing, again, Jalen Johnson. I love trying to trade for injured players who should be back soon, guys who played well earlier in the season. Do you have anybody?
It's tough with Nurkic because, we know that he's like a per minute guy and that when he's healthy, he produces. So, the fact that he's ranked like, I think 60th over the past 30 days or something like that isn't wildly unsustainable by any means. But I think I think you'd like to get somebody back around that range. If you're selling high, if you want to center back, I don't know. There might be some people who are fed up with Walker Kessler that you might be able to kind of steal him. I'm not sure I would do that necessarily. It's like it's a little too sketchy for me, even though I am kind of a believer in him longer term. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
Someone might be kind of fed up with him as well. You're probably going to have to, again, it's a lot of the psychology of trading. You got 2 guys who are hot. There's probably someone else on someone's roster who is on a little bit of a down stretch, and they'd be willing to swap that for you.
Is Cole Anthony on the verge of falling off, becoming a drop in a 12-team, 9-category league? Minutes have been way down last 3 games. They have. That is accurate. In a 12-team league, I think he's close. I would still keep him on my bench, most likely until Fultz is back. But if and when Fultz comes back and actually stays healthy, that would probably be the final nail in the coffin for Cole Anthony, the fantasy player.
Yeah, part of the reason Cole saw so many minutes was Jalen Suggs basically missed 2 games in a row. But yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what happens here. Is he on the verge of falling off? Yeah, potentially. But he played so well throughout so much of the year. I would be really hesitant to drop him for sure.
Another drop question. Is Josh Hart droppable? Thinking of adding either Isaiah Jackson or Taylor Hendricks. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Amer. I think to me, the bigger question is like, are you running out to grab Jackson or Hendricks?
I don't know necessarily if I think Isaiah Jackson has been playing better. I'm not 100% convinced on Hendricks as like a long-term thing or even a short-term thing. Yeah. But Josh Hart also hasn't been playing that well either. They're going with like DiVincenzo a lot more now. Hart's scoring's down. If you just want, so you're asking like, can I drop Josh Hart to add a one-day streamer potentially in Isaiah Jackson? Honestly, I don't hate the idea of that because my question is like, what's the scenario in which Josh Hart suddenly becomes like a top 100 player again? And I just don't know if that exists unless like 3 guys get hurt because their backcourt's so deep.
Yeah, I think I just have concerns about Isaiah Jackson. He was like in and out of the rotation for the first month, but if he's going to play even like 15 minutes a game, he's probably going to block 1 or 2 shots every single night. Like he's always at the top of the league in block rate. So if you're targeting that specifically, then yeah, I think it's fair. Josh Hart has not played like a rosterable player for most of the season. So in general, yeah, I think you're right. All right, we'll do a few more and then we got to get out of here. Talked a lot about Podziemski earlier in the show. Would you drop RJ Barrett to pick up Podziemski?
Oh man. As much of a RJ Barrett hater as I am, I'm not actually sure I would do this. Um, Barrett started the year hot, had some migraines, then played really badly, and now he's back to playing well again. He's ranked 162nd in 8-cat. Is Podziemski going to rank 162nd in 8-cat for the rest of the year? Like, how much confidence do you have in that? Is kind of what you have to ask.
If RJ Barrett could continue to shoot 85% at the free throw line, that's who I want. Podziemski's probably going to have better percentages, but I think night to night, I think Barrett's going to give you better counting stats. He's going to give you a higher floor, more minutes, more secure role. I have no opposition to adding Podziemski, but I actually do think I would keep Barrett here. Let's see. All right, trying to find a couple more good ones here. Based on the last couple of games, are the Hawks finally unleashing Onyeka Okongwu?
Well, Capella is injured.
Right.
He's got a bone bruise, so he didn't play in the last game. However, Okongwu and him basically shared the court for the past 4 games together. They had some overlap.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter also missed the last 3 before their last game.
Yeah, so that's that's factoring into that as well. Maybe, but we've always said if Okongwu's going to get 28 minutes, you got to roster him. So I think I would consider him like a soft ad. And I don't know, how many guys come back like Capella? They said it's a bone bruise and he's questionable.
Yeah, I saw that too. I feel like bone bruise is almost always you're missing some time. So I thought that was strange when I was going through and doing our sweeps last night. Yeah, I mean, if you can add Okongwu and maybe you just hope that Capella misses the whole week, I think he could be awesome. But if the question is, are they unleashing him? No, I don't think they are. I think unless Capella's out long term, then he's just going to be stuck in the same stupid bench role that he's been in for the last couple of years. It's terrible. I mean, I love Okongwu. I'm glad they extended him. I just want them to actually act on that and hand him some minutes at some point. But no, I don't think the full unleashing is here quite yet. Someone offered me Keegan Murray for Jabari Smith Jr. This is a statement.
Take that trade.
Okay.
I don't even know if Keegan Murray had 12 threes the other night, but I would have told you to do this even before that because his shooting was so poor that it was gonna bounce back. So yeah, I would say absolutely do that deal, even though you're gonna look at Jabari Smith's rebounding and see really good numbers.
Fun trade question from AB. Would you do Walker Kessler and Alperen Sengun for Anthony Davis?
I would want to be on the Anthony Davis side of that.
Unless you're really worried about Davis getting hurt, which you should be. But I think if you eliminate that from the equation, I would definitely take the AD side of this every time.
He's just too good.
Yeah,
it's the value in the difference in value is just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love Sengun. I'm actually pretty high on Kessler. AD is just that much better. I mean, he's significantly better than those guys combined. But it just kind of comes down to your, comes down to your risk tolerance at that point. All right, we'll do 2 more, and then we're cutting her off. Let's see. My Kuzma and Gafford for Herro and Kessler. Our question asker is punting assists.
Your Kuzma and Gafford. That's pretty nice for a Herro Kessler. I might hang on to Kuzma and Gafford. Yeah. Gafford has shown some more upside lately. I think even when him and Kessler, if we assume him and Kessler start playing similar minutes, which I don't even know if you can assume that for Walker Kessler, it's been kind of a rough ride for him so far. I think they have similar upside. But yeah, I think I would rather have Kuzma Gafford.
All right, last one. Do you think I should drop Tari Eason for Okongwu if Capella's out, or McConnell if Halliburton's out? It's a Yahoo Points League 10-teamer. I love Eason, but it's B2B. 10-team league becomes a little more difficult. As much as we love Eason, in a 10-team league, you could probably do better. I guess I don't know if I would drop him for McConnell. I would need confirmation that Halliburton's probably going to miss multiple games.
Yeah. If you're asking this for like today, like
Yeah.
if you're gonna like stream these guys in, I think I would rather have I almost no matter what, I think I would rather have a Kongwu here, just for like a daily stream. I think there is a better chance Capella is out for longer than they're sort of letting on. So I wouldn't mind dropping Eason for a Kongwu on the chance that Capella is actually out like 2 weeks instead of whatever they're trying to tell us he's out for, which is like day to day.
Okay, I got to sneak one more in because this is good. Someone offered me Fox for Bam. Thoughts? Was also offered Brunson for Bam.
Fox for Bam. It is a fun trade. I don't know. Do you have strong thoughts on this one?
My first inclination is to say Fox. I think there's a little bit more upside there rest of season. I'm not really worried about the shoulder injury that kept him out the other night. Fox did go through shoot around this morning for what it's worth. So I think there's a pretty good chance he plays. I think the question is, does he continue to struggle at the line? That's really what's killing you in category leagues. He's never been a good free throw shooter. He was better to begin this season. He started hot last year as well and then slowly regressed. He's down to 73%. I think I'd still rather have Fox. I mean, he's still a 36 and a half, almost 5 rebounds, 1.5 steals. He gives you threes. Adebayo doesn't give you that. And like we've been saying all along, the Heat rotation, like we just don't really know. Like they have so many guys, and obviously Butler and Bam are going to be the two that are prioritized. But I think it's possible that Bam has already had his best like 20 game stretch of the season.
Yes, I would rather have Fox than Bam. Brunson versus Bam to me is entirely dependent on what you need positionally.
Yeah.
If you need a center, keep Bam. If you need a guard, grab Brunson.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you for all of the fantastic questions in the stream. We appreciate those. Makes the second half of the pod a lot of fun. We will have Dr. A back on the stream tomorrow. You can check that out. I'll be back with Brandon Kravitz on Wednesday morning. Alex will be back on Friday with Ken and Shannon talking waiver wire. Check out all of our content, rotowire.com/basketball. You see on the screen here, rotowire.com/pod. That will get you free access to our website. Check out all of our tools, including the new RotoWire picks section. If you're playing on Underdog, Prize Picks, Sleeper, even if you're playing, on the sports books, traditionally get all the odds comparisons, all the data, everything you need for prop betting. If you want more of us, you can check Alex and I out on SiriusXM NBA Radio. We are there at 6 p.m. Central every day, Monday through Friday, previewing each slate of games from a gambling perspective. You can catch us on the SiriusXM Fantasy Network as well each night. So thank you again for all the questions. We'll be back next Monday.